Hi, this is Lindsey Doyle from MMA Connect TV, and I'm out in elite training and nutrition with Lindsey Doyle, multiple world champion kickboxer, UFC nutritionist, amateur MMA fighter. The list goes on. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
Good, good.
So we're out here, we wanted to get to speak to you, our first guest on MMA Connect TV, and it couldn't be a better guest. But we wanted to talk to you about your career. That's the first thing that we want to talk about, multiple award-winning kickboxer. But other than that, the last year, how amazing has that been for you? But before we get into that, I want to talk to you about, start from the beginning. How old were you when you started kickboxing?
I was 16 when I started kickboxing. I was in school and we were doing a personal development award in transition year, and I was going to go to a life-saving class, but all my mates were going to kickboxing, so I was like, I'll go with you guys.
Were you the only girl in that class?
No, it was 4 of my girls that we went, but and loved it. And the girls stuck around for a while, but they didn't. I think I was training about 6 weeks, and there was the coach was like, "There's a competition coming up the weekend." I was like, I'll jump in. I'll either love it or hate it, and I loved it. And I've just been loving fighting ever since and training.
And for you, obviously, how long was it before you won your first world title when you started training?
It was a lot. It was about 8 years or so. So I was fighting all the time, but at the time there wasn't a lot of girls in combat sports in Ireland, and there certainly wasn't. There's a few different types of kickboxing. So there's semi-contact, which is kind of like what you would have seen in Karate Kid, where they engage, the ref says stop, and like 1 point this side. But what I was doing was full contact. So if you imagine, it's like boxing in a ring, but with kicks above the waist as well. So you're allowed to knock out. So I spent a lot of time just training with guys and stuff, and then I just would only have international fights with other girls. I done my fair share of losing before it all just clicked together. But I'd say I was about 8 years before I won a world title. But I had a run of kind of meddling at Euros and Worlds and stuff, and then I was in Wales and I won a belt then. It was great.
And you were coaching in this time as well?
I started quite early on. I started when I was 19. I started teaching classes. I done a lot of just because I loved training, I loved fighting, I loved competing, but I was always aware of being confident then outside of training, because I knew I could kind of handle myself if worst case scenario. So I started teaching ladies classes because women, I think a lot of women would like to get into martial arts, but they're just intimidated by the male factor. So I thought if there's a girl teaching the class, they might come. And so I started teaching female, and then I started teaching kids, and then I teach adults and fighters and stuff. And I like it. But the problem is, while I'm still competing, and now obviously I'm competing in MMA, if you want to be a fighter and you want to be the best, you have to be a little bit selfish. So the teaching kind of dwindled off in the last few years for me, because it's not a priority for me at the minute.
Tell everyone what you were working at before you turned to personal training.
Well, initially I studied law in UCD, and I was doing my solicitor apprenticeship and stuff like that. So I had a legal career all set up. But like I said, since a child I was training all my life, and when I was 16 I started the kickboxing, and I very quickly qualified for the Irish team and pretty much had international competition from then on. So I was training all my life, and I knew I loved that. And what I was doing was I was setting up my life so that I could train. So I had a 9 to 5 in a legal office, so I can train before work, go to work, and train in the evening, have my weekends for fights and stuff. And then when we opened up the full-time academy, which is actually just around the corner from here, I came in here to introduce myself to the guys, James, that owns this gym, and he at the time was doing a master's, and he needed to work with a European ranked athlete for I think 3 months or something, I'd do a strength camp with them and just have some findings and stuff. So he asked me, could he train me? And I was lifting at the time, but I was just getting a program from a guy once a month and doing it on my own. So I started training here with James and loved it. And then I knew then at the time, I was like, I'm a very passionate person, and I was going to work and I was working, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So I knew I didn't want to be a solicitor forever, but I just wasn't quite sure what exactly I wanted to be. And I was training with James, and he's like, you'd make a great trainer. And I've been teaching martial arts for years, and I was like, actually, yeah. So I started studying online, went over to Southampton for some exams and practicals and stuff like that, and got myself qualified, and then eased myself in. So I went part-time in the office, just done 20 hours. So I was able to take clients in the morning and the evening, and build up a base. And then I just took the plunge and got rid of the office, and haven't looked back since.
That leads us to my next question that I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously the last year some really exciting stuff has happened to you. One of them in particular is you were asked to come on board with Daly for her camp for, obviously Daly, that if anyone doesn't know, is UFC strawweight, Ireland's first female fighter in the UFC. all around solid person. So how did that come about, you know, and you know, talk to us about your experiences with it.
Yeah, it's a funny one with Ash in that we've known each other for years, but not known each other for years, in that just because I would have been striking on such a high level, and Ash has been in the MMA scene for years and herself struggling for training partners. So anytime Ash had a fight coming up, she would be in touch with me and I would go over just for striking specific sparring. So she'd like, would you just come over and do some striking? I'm fighting this kickboxer next, could you come over? So we'd meet up, we'd spar, and that would be the extent of it. And then last year I started doing some Jiu-Jitsu, and she'd seen, obviously we're friends on Facebook, she's seen a few posts of me on podium, some Jiu-Jitsu, and then she had a fight confirmed for Poland last year that actually fell through in the end. But anyway, she contacted me and she's like, see, you're doing some Jiu-Jitsu, how would you feel about some MMA sparring? And I had, funnily enough, only about 8 weeks previously started training out with Owen Roddy in Primal in Finglas, which is now SBG Charlestown. Mm-hmm. And I was like, look, I'm not sure I'll be any use to you. I'll definitely be useful to you sparring, but you know, or striking. But so we started a bit of MMA sparring, and then she was going over to the UK for a camp. And she's like, look, I'm going to go over for 5 days. There's girls coming from Denmark and blah, blah, blah. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, because I'm always that type. I was like, I'll just try on myself. I want to gauge where I'm at. I'll go over and I'll get a hide and I'll come back and I'll know what I need to work on. I just learn under pressure. So I went over and we had a great weekend. But while we were there, she was asking me the odd thing about food and stuff like that and making weight. And she was 10 weeks out from UFC Dublin at the stage. And then so when we come back, the training continued, and a few times she was asking me more questions about food, and eventually I was just like, Ash, I'm either dictating to you what you eat and I'm working with you, or like I can't give you half advice because that's not beneficial. There's a lot of people around that take bits and bobs from everybody and wind up doing themselves in. You need to just go with one plan kind of. So she was a bit stuck on her weight, so I got her in, we done a bit, and got her on weight, and she loved it, and it was great. Like, she's she'd done everything. Like, normally when I give people food plans, like, I'm desperate, help me, and then I send them something and they're like, well, what about some Frank's hot sauce? And I'm like, are you going to do what I asked her or you're not, you know? Whereas Ash was like, I'm sure if I said to Ash, run out onto the M50 there and do your sprints between cars, she'd be like, okay, Lindsay. You know, so
but it worked, it paid off, because you know, like a lot of the press around her win at that UFC Dublin was, you know, down to how well she looked and how well she performed, you know, and she's said it multiple times, her magic bean was you, you know, so I mean, that's definitely something you must feel like, you know, really proud of that, because it's obviously incorporating your everyday working environment into, like, UFC is, you know, they're at the top of the game. It's amazing,
because like I'm a big believer in the universe, and the last time the UFC was in Dublin when Conor fought, I went to the weigh-ins with my housemate at the time, and we were watching the weigh-ins, and I was saying, the next time the UFC's in Dublin, I'm going to be on that stage at the weigh-ins. And he was like, yeah, and we were laughing about it. And then I texted him, because I went on stage with Ash when she weighed in, and I was like, who would have thought I am on stage? But no, I'm not fighting. I'm just like stripping someone off and making them weigh a certain amount.
No,
but
you played your part. You played your part.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, like, it's definitely, and one of the main things for, like, all of the kind of women in Ireland that are in martial arts, whether it's jiu-jitsu or MMA or kickboxing, one thing that everyone took from that was it was great to see two Irish women, you know, working side by side and supporting each other, which is not something that you see a lot, or it's not something that gets a lot of press. So that was definitely, you know, a great moment for everyone.
But the thing, and I think the inherent trust from Ash is, and a lot of other women that are contacting me now about making weight and stuff, is like, people can know the science, but I've made weight 7 million times over my career. I've done it great and I've done it terrible. I've done it too far out and I've done it too close. Anything like that anyone is going to say they're feeling, I'm going to be like, yeah, I know, and I know it works, and I'm very much I like people to get to know their body, and I just promote just being real kind to your body, and your body will do what you ask of it. And a lot of the old school train really hard mentality is changing now. People are realizing train smart, and it's the same with the nutrition. Like, you shouldn't, like, at the end of a camp, be absolutely starved and not able to peak. You should peak at the end of your camp and feel strong and feel ready to go. So you just need to fuel the body.
Because obviously weight cut is, like, there's a huge debate out there, you know, is it good? Should it be gotten rid of? Should you fight at your normal walk around weight? You know, what's your opinion of it?
Well, I think people are gonna cut weight unless fights can be made at, like, catch weight. But once you put a division in, if the division is minus 75 kilos, there's nobody going to fight in the minus 75 kilos at 72 kilos. They're going to go, okay, I'll make minus 70 then. You want to be the heaviest person in your division. It's just how people do it, and a very often overlooked thing is the refuel after you make weight, because they've the day before weigh-ins because of brain injuries and stuff like that, fighting dehydrated. But a lot of people think once they've made weight they've won, and they take their eye off the prize. They forget their fuel and their body to perform the next day, And what's vital is after weigh-in until you step into the ring or the cage, what goes back in then. And there's a lot of science behind that. With people just think you rehydrate, you put water in, but your body makes its own water, so you need to give it the minerals it needs to make that water and stuff like that. And it depends on the person and the severity. Like people talk about people cutting 8 kilos and blah blah blah, but I always work on a percentage of the person's body weight. So if Ash needs to be 115 for a championship, or 116 if it's not a championship fight, and she cuts from 130 in water weight, that's too much of a percentage of her body weight. But someone that weighs 110 kilos cutting 14 pounds in water, it's not so much of a percentage, you know. So you need to just look at the science behind it.
And it definitely is a science.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. But all of that leads us on to, you know, it's typical of you, you know, it's always about the other person and helping other people and, like, you know, looking after, whether it's coaching or nutrition or personal training. But let's talk about you, your future and your plans within amateur MMA fighter. You know, you were over in the UK for the MAF championships, you know, and good experience.
Yeah, I loved it. It's another thing for me that, so the kickboxing got to where it was going to get to, because unfortunately it's not a big pro scene in kickboxing. There's no money to be made. Not that I was in it to make money, but so I had achieved what I was going to achieve there, so I had to take a step back to, like, the commitment involved in competing at the top level was, it's great when you're hungry for it, but when you've been there, you start losing the hunger. It's hard to get out of bed the crack of dawn and go and do your sprints or whatever you might have to do on top of everything else in your day. So I was losing my passion for it, and I took a step back, and then I started taking on more clients because I wasn't having to train so often. But then I was missing competition, so I was like, I want to start something totally different. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I loved jiu-jitsu, and I got really stuck into it, and I started competing in jiu-jitsu, and I enjoyed it, but the competitions in jiu-jitsu weren't giving me the same high that I got from stepping into a ring. So then I was like, you know, it just makes total sense. Let me just try some MMA. So I had a look around, and I was thinking, like, obviously the whole thing was SBG John Kavanagh, because Connor was going nuts at the time. But I'm a little bit more selfish, and I just didn't want to be one of a million people, you know. So I had a look around, and I was looking at what MMA gyms were around, and I've never had a problem travelling to train, because I mean, I'd often drive up to Galway on a Tuesday night for a spar and not think anything of it, because you just have to do that if you want to get better. So Owen Roddy had a gym out in Finglas, and I loved his style of fighting. He's just a real, like me and my kickboxing, I was never technically amazing. It was always just that I wanted it more and I was fitter. So I'd break girls down, and they might do their fancy pretty stuff and then hit me with their best shot, and I'm still there, and they're like, oh fuck, she's still here. And then I'll step it up. And that's very similar to what I seen in Owen Roddy. Now, obviously an exceptional striker and a brilliant MMA fighter, champion. But I just loved his, just a little goer, you know, and that's the way I fight, and I like that he was a striker coming through that way. So I rang Owen, and actually it took some convincing, because I'm sure he gets phone calls all the time. I was like, could I come out and train in your MMA? And he was like, do the intro class for jiu-jitsu first. And I was like, no, I'm doing jiu-jitsu with Darragh O'Connell, I've done this. Please let me just come out and try the MMA class. And he was like, okay, well, come out and see how you get on. And now, like, the guys, I love the guys out there. And obviously it's brilliant that he's connected to John Kavanagh the way he is, because with me training with Ash now, I'm going between the both. I'm going between SPG Charlestown and in Concord. And the lads couldn't be nicer to me. It's brilliant.
That's amazing. So, and your next fight, you've just been confirmed for Akuma, up the north. Yeah, and you're meeting against
Megan O'Loughlin.
From CMAC.
Yeah.
So you're excited, obviously.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's 20th of February, and it's up there. We were it was to be on Battlezone at the end of January, but then that was pushed back to April, and we just wanted to get in and get it done. Look, I'm so happy that there's Megan is there at 125, and then there's 2 other girls on the show at 125 as well. So that means another 2 fights in Ireland for me this year, which is great, because it's such a small scene. And Megan's lovely, and she was away at IMAF fighting at 125. I fought at 145 at IMAF, because I only decided 3 weeks beforehand to go, and it was weigh in every day, and I didn't want to be cutting weight. But I can't wait. I just love, even, like, that's why Owen just be laughing at me, because, like, even if I'm getting killed, the lads are killing me, I'm just having the time of my life.
And do you have any advice for any women or young girls that were looking to start training, you know, that wanted to get into MMA? What would you recommend are the first steps that they should take? Yeah,
just go and find a class. Like, I mean, for me, it's always, if you're going to start something, it has to be something that you enjoy, especially if it's going to become a passion. So go, try a jiu-jitsu class, try a kickboxing class, try a judo class, and see which one clicks with you, and then you'll find it very easy. It won't be I have to go training. If you are dying to get there, that's perfect. Like, I even with it's the new year now, and everybody in the gym wants to, like, new year, new you, blah blah blah. I'm just like, find something that you could do every night of the week, and if you can't do that 3 times a week, it's not the right thing. If you know, you'll if you want to do something, you'll do it. So there's so many clubs around, and a lot of them want women because it's a good thing for women to do, you know. When you think about Jiu-Jitsu, you know, the strongest position in Jiu-Jitsu mostly is for a woman how she would be if a man was attacking her on the ground with him between her legs. And then when you think about striking, if you just hit a guy a punch and leg it, you know, it's great, you know, and just for confidence. Just for confidence. And for me, my people skills in the gym, I meet complete strangers, new clients come in, but because I'm used to traveling with bunches of strangers, but we bond over this one thing that we all love, it just gives you such good people skills, and you meet so many different people that you would never meet in your regular life. You know?
Absolutely. And do you put that down to martial arts?
Yeah, for sure. There's a discipline involved. I always say about people's kids and stuff, I'm like, get them into a martial art. Like martial arts and gymnastics would be my 2 things to put young kids into, because the martial arts element of it, the respect, it teaches them to get given out to by someone else and deal with it, you know, and the discipline of training, and you know, and getting to know their body. Like anyone that I work with in the gym, strength wise, that done any form of a martial art as a child, even if they done it up until the age of 7, and now they're coming into me as a fat 35-year-old, they know their body a lot better than someone that's never done anything. Like I can give them teaching cues and they'll know because they're in touch with their body. They've learned that at a young age, whereas people that have done none can be a little bit awkward, and you have to kind of teach them about their body. So definitely get into it.
Amazing. So tell us your plans, your visualization for the next 5 years. Where do you want it to go?
Well, this is something that, because it's January obviously, and I've been having to think about it, because for me 2 sides of life have kicked off for me. So with the working with Ash in her camp and her nutrition and stuff like that, and getting the exposure I did from that, there's a lot of other fighters coming on board. So career wise, it's just taken off. And then the MMA wise, because people say, what's your goals in MMA? But I never had any. I've had a career in kickboxing where I've chased everything I wanted and I've gotten it, and then I was just looking for something to fill a void, and now suddenly it's all taken off in the MMA. So I don't know, I'm just going to keep, as long as I'm enjoying fighting, I'm going to keep fighting. So I don't know, I would like to get as many fights under my belt as I could this year, and just like make all my mistakes in my amateur fights, and then just see what the world has in store for me.
Sure, it's got a lot, Lindsey. And we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you're so busy, so we really do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
That was lovely.